These were huge losses for the Tories, these two by-elections, weren't they? Just how disappointed are you?
Well, clearly we're very disappointed. I think we had excellent candidates, Festus Akinbusoya in Mid Bedfordshire and Andy Cooper in Tamworth. Really good candidates, good campaigns. I might say that the big problem we have is still Conservative voters staying at home. The Labour vote hardly went up at all. In fact, it went down slightly in Mid Bedfordshire. No breakthrough for the Liberal Democrats. But clearly disappointing for us, and we'll have to reflect on the fact that a large number of Conservative voters stayed at home. Clearly, there were very specific circumstances behind those two by-elections, legacy factors, things that predated Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister. But clearly, we need to be showing that we're getting on with the job, delivering good government, but also looking forward to some of the exciting policies that Rishi launched at the conference.
You say that the votes for Labour went down in Mid Bedfordshire, but that doesn't really make any difference, does it, when the share of the Tory vote halved in Mid Bedfordshire? And these were huge Tory majorities that were overturned here. In Tamworth, a majority of nearly 20,000 overturned. That's the biggest majority overturned in an election in percentage terms since the Second World War. In Mid Bedfordshire, the majority was 24,000. I mean, you don't get much safer than these seats, do you?
Well, clearly, as I say, they're very disappointing results. A lot of legacy issues there. The Labour vote did not go up, though. It reflected the experience on the doorstep. I was more than 10 times in Mid Bedfordshire, 5 times in Tamworth. I didn't have a single person come to the doorstep saying that the solution to their problems was Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. Clearly, there's unhappiness with the Conservative Party. That's why we need to get back to delivering on the 5 priorities we've laid out for this year and laying out exciting policies for the future.
Well, yes, but this comes straight off the back of a Conservative Party conference where Rishi Sunak was saying that he was relaunching the party. He had a pitch that it was a party of change. That just isn't washing with the electorate, is it?
Well, as I say, we need to make sure, think about and reflect on, particularly the large number of Conservative voters who stayed at home. We need to think about how to energise them. They realise this is a by-election, would not be determining who is the government. Rishi Sunak will carry on being Prime Minister. Things could be very different at a general election going forward. Governments traditionally don't do well at by-elections, and nor are by-elections necessarily a good prediction of how a future general election will pan out.
You have to be worried about the trend. They're not the only record swings we've seen from Labour to the Conservatives, are we? We've had other by-elections seeing a similar pattern, swings of over 20%. Half of the 10 biggest Conservative defeats have been in this Parliament. It's a worrying trend, isn't it?
Well, clearly these are disappointing results. We need to reflect on those results. But by-elections are not often a good indicator of how an ensuing general election will happen.
OK, so what are you saying? Nothing needs to change?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we need to think particularly about the fact that Conservative voters are not coming out to vote Conservative at the moment. That is definitely a big issue for us. What I am saying, though, is that by-elections are not necessarily a good indicator of general elections to follow. We'll be very hopeful of regaining those 2 seats at next year's general election, but we need to also be getting on with delivering in good governance in this country, delivering on the 5 priorities.
So you're sticking with the 5 priorities, no change to your strategy?
Well, we're sticking to the 5 priorities, delivering against those, but also we're launching new policies going forward, exciting new approach showed by Rishi Sunak at the party conference, a new approach to net zero, a more balanced approach, reforms to A-levels, reforms to smoking and the launch of Network North to make sure that money goes into public transport projects in the North and in the Midlands.
And yet you've announced those policy changes and yet you get a result like this. Does that not make you think you need to change tack? Well,
what we are saying is that we need to carry on delivering, but also moving into new policy areas and also reflecting on the fact that Conservatives are not feeling sufficiently incentivised at the moment to come out and vote Conservative. As we saw in last night's very low turnout by-elections, it was principally Conservatives not showing up to vote that was our biggest issue.
Should Rishi Sunak take responsibility for these losses?
Well, I think Rishi Sunak, don't forget the 2 by-elections were caused by legacy issues that predated Rishi Sunak, of course. But I think the public can see Rishi Sunak, and I feel that on the doorstep, the conversations that I had in Mid Bedfordshire and Tamworth, people were happy with the job that Rishi Sunak is doing as Prime Minister. There's still a number of legacy issues in relation to the party and specifically the reason for those 2 by-elections taking place.
If Rishi Sunak doesn't need to take responsibility for these huge losses, should you as party chair?
Well, I think we fought good campaigns, we had excellent candidates, and we'll be hopeful of regaining those 2 seats at the general election expected next year.
So you're not considering your position as party chair after these
losses? No, I'm going to be looking at the dynamics and the operation of those by-elections, but I think we had a very good campaign, we had good candidates. We just need to find a way of incentivising Conservatives to turn up to vote next year for the general election, but I'm confident that we will be able to do that.
While I've got you here, I do want to ask you about the Prime Minister's trip to the Middle East. He is hoping to try to de-escalate the situation, try to avoid further escalation in the war between Israel and Hamas. I wonder what you think his chances of success are in the region. How much sway does he have in these countries?
Well, I think the UK has a certain degree of influence. That is why Rishi's in the region, is meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister, the President of Israel, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He's on his way to Egypt at the moment. The UK has traditionally had good influence in the Middle East. We need to make sure that we both give strong support for Israel, which has been a victim of a terrible, heinous terrorist attack from Hamas, whilst equally making sure that it doesn't broaden into wider regional conflict, and making sure that the UK plays its important role here in making sure that we prevent that wider regional conflict taking place, while also recognising Israel's strong right to defend itself.
OK, well, Greg Hans, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. Thank you.